Yo, yo, yo! I decided to make this video in order to get some of the misconceptions out of the way about the FRQs. And then to do this, we're going to be analyzing your most recent FRQ. I did a breakdown of the grades, and with a total of 25 students submitting their assignments and trying, we got above the national average for this question. Mind you, we didn't take the full test, and the content of the FRQ is over the stuff that we recently looked at. The national average was 3.39 out of 10, and the class with outliers, meaning zeros, and these zeros are just students submitting with no answers to the FRQs, got a 6.08. And again, not too bad. On the following slides, you will see what good answers looks like and determine which ones to avoid. These answers were chosen from the 25 students that submitted their assignments. If you want to do well in this AP exam, which is just basically all FRQ, I highly recommend practicing now. We have 6 weeks, y'all. Let's make the most of it. Part A is all about reading the graph and identifying the national park that had the greatest loss of visibility. One reason that people visit national parks is to view the scenery. Visibility at the 4 parks in the graph had been reduced over time, so that by 2015, the visibility was an average of 70 miles less than the historical visibility. Regional air pollutant sources are commonly located over 100 miles away from the national parks. Based on the data provided in the graph, identify the national park that had the greatest loss of visibility as of 2015 when compared with historical natural visibility. So in order to answer this question, we need to look at the graph, and the correct answer is just the biggest change, and that would be Sequoia. For the keyword identify, you just need to list the answer. An acceptable answer would be Sequoia. The best answer would be the Sequoia National Park had the greatest loss of visibility as of 2015 when compared with its historical natural visibility. The reason why is we always want to be answering incomplete sentences. That was just rephrasing of it, but the student listed just Sequoia National Park. Next part of the FRQ, visibility in national parks can be affected by many different air pollutants. Number 1, identify a primary pollutant. Number 2, describe how a primary air pollutant is formed within the atmosphere. This would be considered a Googleable type question, y'all. And College Board mentioned that those type of questions won't be on the AP exam. You can Google this and definitely get an answer. But I wanted to point out that this right here is an acceptable answer. A primary air pollutant is carbon monoxide or VOCs. The student listed 2 options. The question did not ask for 2. If you give more options than the question asked for, the AP reader will just take the first choice to be fair. So again, don't throw information at the paper and expect to try to get points. The AP readers are very strict with this idea. They will only take the first one. So just think very hard, write down the answer. The best answer would be 1 primary pollutant is sulfur dioxide. Again, a complete sentence. But remember, you do not need to have a complete sentence to answer identify questions. Identify questions could come in the form of identifying something off of a graph or data table. For the keyword describe, you would need to provide characteristics of the concept. An acceptable answer would be coming directly from a source like car exhaust. Again, to the point, but it does describe an example, car exhaust. But a better answer that guarantees points, a primary air pollutant can be formed within the atmosphere by coming directly from a source of pollution, such as automobile emissions or factories. So that was a better answer that is very clear and concise rather than the other one, which is acceptable but very incomplete. 3 asked, to identify a secondary air pollutant. 4 asks to describe how a secondary air pollutant is formed within the atmosphere. Again, a one-word answer here would be enough when you are asked to identify. So ozone is an example of a secondary air pollutant. The best answer, however, will always be written in a complete sentence. A secondary air pollutant can be sulfate.
So, Mr. Tran, how are you able to answer the previous questions?
Very good question, Billy. Again, this is a visual from your PowerPoint. All the information we have provided to you. But remember, if you look at a source and copy it word for word, that type of question is most likely not going to be on your AP exam this year. Too easy, you can Google it. There's no point value to that. Again, if you guys can look it up on the internet, it's not going to be on the AP exam. An acceptable answer to part 4 would be secondary pollutants are formed when a primary pollutant is mixed with things in the atmosphere like sunlight and they transform into secondary pollutants. This is a good answer because it provides a clear description. A better answer is a secondary air pollutant is formed within the atmosphere when a primary pollutant combines with another substance or chemical in the air, such as sunlight or oxygen. This better answer is just phrased in a neat and concise way. Going on to the next section. In 1990, Great Smoky Mountains National Park had a visibility of 25 miles. Visibility data for 2015 can be determined from the graph above. 1. Calculate the percent increase in visibility from 1990 to 2015. 2. Discuss 2 specific actions that the state or federal government could take or encourage to further improve the visibility in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Boom! The key word calculate will not be on this exam, y'all. In order to answer this question correctly, you needed to know the formula for percent change. Yes, there's a formula for that. Even though you don't have to perform calculations, you will still need to be able to identify or describe items off of a graph or data with numbers. So understand how to read a graph or interpret numbers are still crucial. But no math calculations, y'all. For the next part, you needed to discuss, which requires you to provide a solution and expand upon that idea to support your solution that addresses the issue. A common answer that I saw that didn't receive credit would be the government could start by enacting limits on campfires and regulation on littering. The student did provide solutions, right? But they didn't expand on that idea and relate it back to how that solution addresses the issue of increasing visibility. The best answer, and this is a lengthy one, which it should be because it's a discuss type question, 2 specific actions that government could take to improve visibility in Great Smoky Mountains National Park is to create legislation that would prohibit the combustion of coal and oil within the park, and also place laws that limit the amount of pollutants that nearby factories emit. If the student would have stopped there, no points would have been awarded. No, the student continued with prohibiting the combustion of fuels within the park would prevent the production of sulfur dioxide, a primary pollutant that comes from combustion. Also, regulating the amount of pollutants that nearby factories emit by using air pollution technology, such as the electrostatic precipitators, would decrease the amount of particulate matter and other pollutants from decreasing the visibility in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Wow, just wow. That is such an amazing answer, and thus Mr. Tran putting it on the presentation. Last part, excluding air pollution, discuss 2 additional ways national park ecosystems are being degraded by high levels of visitor use. Common answer that did not receive credit, y'all. National park ecosystems are being degraded by high levels of visitor use because of littering practices and noise pollution. Even though it is concise, this is practically listing or identifying, not discussing. The best answer, two additional ways national park ecosystems are degraded by high levels of visitor use is the increase in litter from tourists as well as altering of ecosystems through the creation of more paths that damage the ecosystem. Increased litter from visitors who don't care to wait to find a trash can affect animals in the park as they might consume harmful materials such as plastic. They can easily choke on and die. This right here, y'all, is a very good link. It links littering to how it damages the ecosystem, which is killing the animals. Moving on. Also, more visitors mean more paths must be made around the park, which can destroy small ecosystems along the way and alter food webs if certain foliage is paved over or trampled in the process. 3 things that I concluded from grading and analyzing your FRQs. Number 1, if a question asks you to provide a certain amount of methods or solutions, please provide that certain amount. No more, no less. The example in our FRQ asks for 2 ways. Some students provided more than 2. The AP reader will only take the first ones to be fair. So there's no point in wasting time throwing everything on the paper. You won't get points for that. Pick the one you are confident in and write it down. Number 2, generic answers will not get you points on the AP exam. This has been a consistent problem all year long, so let's develop a technique. To check to see if your response is generic, by simply rephrasing your answer into a question. Let's look at an example of how this works. Vehicles used in the park are harmful to the ecosystem. So the question that you would rephrase it to would be, what is harmful to the ecosystem? Your answer is generic because there are many things that can harm the ecosystem, like releasing pollutants that disrupts an animal's foraging habits. Habitat fragmentation disrupts the wildlife's ability to continue life in the area. Littering could cause animals to die from eating inedible materials. So many answers could be answered here. To have a specific answer, vehicle usage require roads to be built in the park, thus causing habitat fragmentation, which makes wildlife difficult to travel from one area to another safely. So again, rephrasing that, what is habitat fragmentation? Boom, very, very specific. One more thing. Write your answer from the point of view that the AP readers are not knowledgeable. Example, high visitor use degrades national park ecosystems through littering and could possibly go out of the allowed areas and damage the ecosystem. That was the end of the student's response. So in order to get the points for this discussed question, the student needed to describe how littering would degrade the park and how going outside the allowed areas could damage ecosystems. We know that littering could potentially kill wildlife if animals try to consume it. We also know that going outside the allowed areas of the park means humans could potentially kill rare producers by stomping on it. But if it is not typed out, it will not count. So please, please, please make sure you are describing as well as informing these AP readers of your knowledge. Hopefully this gives you guys concrete methods in order to tackle the problem of being generic in your free response answers. Again, we want to be very specific in our answers, and the only way we can do this is by practicing and using these new techniques, y'all. Make sure that you guys are practicing. Practice makes perfect. And again, we're going to be evaluating as much as possible to give you guys specific feedback. We want you guys to do well, y'all. Okay, so do your best. Contact us if you need us. Have a good one.